Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Movers. I'm Diane King Hall, live from the Wall Street. Investors, traders, algo-driven flows kept piling into AI, semiconductors, and anything tied to the digital infrastructure build-out, pushing the major averages to fresh record highs. Actually, join me on Bloomberg Horizons Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insights shaping the decisions of traders across the six sectors.
2 days worth of trade. We've got 8 o'clock on the clock, and you guys know me. That means it is time.
Might be standing on the verge of something great. Can we be loud enough?
Pre-market prep Friday, May 15th on the calendar, 8 o'clock on the clock. Let's get job done. So welcome one, welcome all. Both in the tippity top of the chat. Let's see who's here with us on this lovely Friday. We've got a little bit of a bluebird day starting to shape up here. I can see just a sliver of that sky out the window, but it's definitely much better if we're about, I don't know, 10, 15 degrees, a little bit on the warmer side. Anyway, we're steps in the right direction, baby steps in the right direction. We're getting through it. And we'll be back down at home base in not too long. In the meantime, scrolling up to the tippity top, who is at the tippity top? I would expect some Friday fever. Let me scroll on up and see if we do indeed have Mr. G. Survey says yes. Mr. G, who's feeling that Friday fever? Don't forget to sign in at the like desk if you haven't done so for complimentary popcorn this morning on Mr. G. Appreciate that. Mr. G holding down the fort at the tippity top. Seven Sisters is here. The Fade Dr. E.T. We've got Michael Herman. Good morning. We've got Duna B. Hootie. Seven Sisters. Lazo P. Mad Trade King. Bill Lakeside is here. Oscar Vice for Victory. Time Sellers. We've got Talent 103. Stock Trapper 128. You have Michael H. Nigel Bites the Dip. Who else? Mini Trader. Good morning. President Djibouti, good to see you as always. Texas Badger. G. Mickey holding down the fort with that blue name. Blue Shield. I can't say Blue Wrench anymore. I'm kind of bummed about that. I want to be able to say Blue Wrench. We've got Own Worst Enemy 73. Fed Tracker Fred. We've got Chris D. Cipriano. Tizzy Dizzy. C Black. Patrick B is in the house. Toasted Rye Bread. Good to see you. A friend in the market. We've got Replay Game Lab. Dirk Fisher trades. Massive Oxtel. Dangerous Function 54. There we go. Early humans had a word for 1 and 2, but the word for 3 meant many. 3 is prime, and it is the number of your life today. Good morning from Orlando, Florida. Still stateside. Vague Futurist. We got I'm a Trader too. It's Caldy. There he is. Time to get the job done indeed. That is what we are here to do on this morning's session. Anthony Wu is in the house. Overthinking Koala, Delightful Sunny, Lipid JG, Mistral, Dark Mommy. We've got Philip B. Roger Tut, PJ's in the penthouse. Good morning, Booyah. Frank DeLeo, Endemonium, Arb Ranger, Algo Linguist. We will get that one correct today. Kahia holding down the 808 state as we know. Frank DeLeo, Beth Jesus, who's ready for Saturday? Ooh, looking straight through the morning session, are we? Friday rules because Friday rules, yes. Smelly Forest Boy, aka Stinky Man of the Woods 413. We'll never forget that username. Right, Rosales is here. Got Entertain Me. How are we doing on time? 8:03 and 14 seconds. Doing fine. Mighty Mouse. We've got who else? Mean Boy Coins. Jerry Robbins, Kevin, Network Capital Inc. Bonfire Toffee. I like that. Jeremy Store. Aldo L. I identify as a banker. I think we got a couple of these people back to back to back to back. Mike Bruck is here. Pete and Repeat, the most classic name there ever was. Who else? Fry Guy, Bad Wolf, TK, Zombie Wolf, speaking of wolves. Clotho M, Robert Rudolph, Elvis Miami, Starman 77, good to see you. Nate Dalton, Desert Bean, Jim Robitaille is here. Alex D, Atlanta Zone. Oh, Miami Beach Broker. Beautiful day in the Miami beaches, I'm sure of it. Mark K, the Pit Trader. Good morning, Scott H, Robert Cove, Zen Supernova. Ooh, I think I just got bumped to the bottom. Scroll up, see if I can pick up where we left off. Still doing fine on time. We got 8:04 and 15 seconds. No problemo over there. Yeah, perfect. Right where we need to be. XOXOXO Gaming. That's 3 X's, 3 O's, 3 O's. Good morning. Teacher Russell, Rod, the Dark Gojo, American Psycho, tippity top of the morning to you. Registered. Is that what is this a zombie? Oh boy, I'm trying to zoom in there. Shrek, gotcha. Registered, Shreked, and copywritten. Thank you for the parentheses and the clarity on that one. Gotta love the mystery emoji this morning. We've got JD Luthra, So You 812 Hootie, Darren Jones, Eric, good morning. We have Kevin Man, 1 horsepower. Well, Beetle Bing, Marcel Fletcher, this K911, mainly scalping. David Price, how are we doing on time? 8:05 and 11 seconds. Stephen, 5410, good morning. Candle Lockett. Oh, Eric with the 5 gifted memberships. Very generous of you on a lovely Friday morning. Hopefully you have been having a fantastic week. I know we've been absolutely having a blast up in the office and talking a lot about those options. So hopefully that's been useful, informational, and can give you some edge as we walk forward, of course. All right, Vague Futurist, good morning. OG, nice to see you. Pandemonium, Magsy, what's happening? Alex again. NLG Bacon. Proposal, Rocket Tendencies. Okay, got it. Zero. I mean, we could be here all day. We could literally be here all day. Welcome one, welcome all. We've got a job to get done. Let's start to do that job. It's pretty easy on the economic calendar. Didn't feel like we had to cut it off exactly at 8:05 because you can see there's nothing to really talk about here on the economic calendar. Empire State Manufacturing Index, don't really care. 8:30, we'll see if the market moves. 9:15, cap utilization, industrial production, don't care. Moving forward, I think we should just briefly take a look at what's going on out to next week. G7 meetings will kick off on Monday. Just be aware of that. And then that's pretty much it, right? Monday is maybe not a freebie, but doesn't really seem like we have a lot of pre-scheduled economic data for early next week. So we could sleep just fine over the weekend. Jumping into the Fed Watch tool here, I have given this a refresh, and we could still see that we are looking at odds of a rate hike out to March of 2027. So we will be paying attention to that as we move forward. Remember, it's an expectation game. Let's jump on over to the earnings calendar. It's pretty easy over here as well. Figma, Applied Materials, probably some of the more interesting names. Nubank, maybe. And then pre-market here, nothing really grabbed my attention. If you're interested in some of that stuff, don't let me discourage you. But for me, I think we're through a majority of the important stuff. Ondas being one of the names that I am pretty interested in after yesterday's rally. That's the earnings calendar. Let's jump on over to the top line figures, courtesy of CNBC. We are flying this morning. We've got ourselves Dow futures down about 66 basis points. S&P futures 100 basis points. Oh my goodness, 1%. Not good. NASDAQ futures down over 1%, 1.41% on the top line figure there from prior day's close. Oil futures up about 309 basis points, 104.30 on the actual barrel price. We're seeing some escalation again on the crude. And you can see over here on the US 10-year, it is up mildly. I shouldn't even say mildly. 9.1 basis points, giving us a 4.55% on the yield itself. That is a breakout in the 10-year yield over 4.5. Not good. Not great on the yield. We'll see if the market actually cares about that today. Obviously, the inflation numbers this week, markets didn't really seem to care all that much. But for the most part, a 4.5% breakout, yeah, kind of a big deal. Hard to continue to ignore that, right? Hard to ignore. All right, let's keep moving forward. Let's see what's going on in the big headlines this morning. The Trump-Xi summit, President Xi. The summit, the big 3 takeaways from the historic meeting in Beijing. What does CNBC classify as the 3 big moments? Let's see. Geopolitical alignment, number 1. Trade truce holds. Number 2. Wins for business. Number 3. China will order 200, not 20, 200 big ones from Boeing. Interesting. But less than half of the 500 that were initially anticipated. Still, I mean, that's a pretty big number. Boeing was down on the news, I imagine, just because expectations were kind of broken. But nonetheless, that is what CNBC classifies as the big 3. Trump leaves China after talks dominated by trade, oil, and Taiwan. Stock futures fall after the summit ends, as you can see over here. You got Bill Ackman saying that he built a Microsoft position in the first quarter, buying it on the lower there. I don't know what it is, but this picture kind of looks like AI. I don't know if Bill just has kind of that look to him there, or I don't know what's up with that, but that's kind of I don't know. I don't know about that photo. What else? Cerebras. What an interesting IPO. What an interesting day to watch some IPO action, watch the tape, watch your, of course, level 2, watch your time in sales. It was interesting. And I hope whoever that big short at 325 was, somebody was big short up against 325, or you could say it was just a massive path of fire. I think Kathy Wood bought a bunch of Cerebras at day 1 here. It's like she did with Coinbase. But 325 passive buyer or aggressive seller. I hope the seller made a boatload of money on the break down towards 300 flat. Magnum ice cream stock soars 18% after report of potential private equity takeover. Interesting. Let me zoom in a little bit further. Come on. Play nice. CNBC. All right, let's keep moving. Trucking stock has lagged as of late. JBHT, JB Hunt, XPO, ODFL, those names perhaps. Some of the transport names were on fire yesterday. Governor Mirren submits resignation. Super Mirren, no more, huh? Interesting. First support behind Kevin Warsh as the new chair. Super Dove Mirren says, I am done. I've done my job. Interesting. What else? West East Oil Pipeline to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. That's for the UAE, fast tracking a second one. What else? Lutnick in the headlines this morning. Oil prices jump after President Trump says China agreed to buy U.S. crude. Okay. Historic trip to Cuba happening soon. What else? Las Vegas Raiders valued at $9.9 billion valuation. Okay. Britain's next PM. Okay. SpaceX IPO prospectus could land as soon as next week. I see what they did there. Nicely done. Who wrote it? Was it Leslie or was it Morgan? Either way, great job, guys. I can get behind that headline from CNBC. Well done. The SpaceX IPO prospectus could land as soon as next week. Nice. Yeah, could have chose a better picture there, but I like the wordplay. What else is going on? Cerebras IPO mints 2 billionaires, set stage for potential AI wave. Yeah, I mean, let's take it easy. I mean, the stock is if it's going to do anything like Coinbase, they're going to be short-lived billionaires. We shall see. What else is going on here? Family offices turn to old economy businesses like dealerships and fisheries to avoid AI disruption. Interesting. Bond market believes the Fed is behind the curve on inflation as Warsh takes over. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious, I think. Gemini surges after the Winklevoss Capital Fund invests $100 million in the crypto exchange. No comment. I have had a horrible experience with Gemini over the last month or so. Customer service is non-existent. You can't get anybody on the phone. They do not respond to emails, which I'm hard-pressed to talk. But I don't run a multi-million, $100 million business here. Right. So I don't know, Gemini, a little bit on my bad side right now, those Winklevoss twins. So I don't know. Get me out of there. Coinbase, I've had a much better experience with. All right. What else is going on here? NVIDIA earnings, of course, no doubt about that. Next week, Honda shares over up 7%. Nice. Good for Cisco, good for Broadcom. Okay. Kramer backs NVIDIA selling AI chips in China, but says the stock will thrive either way. What else? World of Hyatt's award chart is changing next. Okay, closing arguments in Musk versus Altman. All right. That's it through the big headlines this morning. I would say that the biggest thing is the Cerebras IPO. We're continuing to look forward to NVIDIA earnings. It's a great reminder over here from the CNBC folks. SpaceX IPO in the headlines. And just oil, right? Oil Trump summit over in China. Super Dove Mirren thrown in the towel to back Warsh, of course. So I don't think there's anything too crazy up here through the headlines. Maybe Bill Ackman's stake in Microsoft. Microsoft been a little bit of a laggard here, for sure. Been a little bit of a sloppy chart to get into, but nonetheless, that's what we got through the top line figures and the big headlines this morning. We've got a little bit of time to make up for, so let's jump on over to the charts. Let's get the job done. Grab yourself a sip of tea, coffee, water, whatever it is that you've got at the desk this morning, and we will jump right into the ES futures on a 4-hour time scale. I do believe, if I am not mistaken, that is where we should land, and I do believe that is what we've got. So tea, coffee, water, take your sip, and I'll see you over at the screens in just a second. Okay, we are at the screens. Very disappointing brew of coffee this morning. It's not hot. I don't know what's going on here. I just brewed this thing up not 13 minutes ago, and it's not piping hot. A little bit problematic, a little bit underwhelming, if you will. Nonetheless, we find ourselves where we need to be on the ES futures 4-hour time scale. This is home base, 8:13 on the clock, a little bit ahead of schedule for this morning session. Beautiful. What did we miss in the chat? What was that? Let me scroll back up. I saw something green fly by. Flippin' Ohio with the 5 gifted memberships in the chat as well. Back to back with Eric. Appreciate that. Welcome to the 5, well, actually 10 new members up here in the office. Flippin' Ohio, very generous of you on a lovely Friday morning. Hopefully it's been a great week. Again, always up in the official office. And hopefully this week's been treating you well. It's been a marvelous week. Get it? Marvelous week. All right, I gotta take it easy. All right, 4 hour time scale. What's going on over here? We of course have ourselves a beautiful uptrend, and we are starting to pull back just a little bit. Just a little bit. Not enough to make me think that like a 4 hour higher low is on the table. We'll get into the hourly chart in just a second, but I'm imagining that this is still somewhat of an hourly higher low opportunity relative to this. We're not even close to the gap fill area yet down here, which as we recall is closer to that 7,300 roughly. We got 7,300 in there. Top of the gap is like 7,330. So there's still so much room for a 4 hour higher low gap fill reversal. Keeps buyers on sides. And I mean, my goodness, we have not experienced the pullback at all in this market. Right, let me actually go over here for just a second. Come on, your study set. I just have a conveniently placed 5 day moving average here. So, I mean, this is where the market's set to open right here, just taking out the 5 day moving average, which is the cyan one. The 10 day moving average is down here. The gap is below that. That would be the 20. So this is the 20, this is the 10, the 5. Because the market has been on such a rip in the upward direction, I'm usually not, unless I'm intraday trading against the 5, the trend has been a little bit more incremental for me recently. But because the trend has been so strong, I figured, it's probably worth just having a reference point as we're moving forward. Then again, before we're opening, just a touch under the 5, still plenty of room to go into the 10. And this being the last major hourly higher low, 1 hour higher low, the market said, okay, Thursday, straight up. Wednesday, even Thursday, straight up. And now we can afford pullbacks into here. We're going to be opening down here. So does this just turn into a higher low on the higher time frame, like the hourly? Possible. Definitely possible. So anyways, just pointing out the 10-day moving average is still underneath us at this point. We do not have it over here on the futures, although I'm sure we can just do it. So daily SMA. Let's add 2 of them. Good. And let's hit this with a 10-day in red. Fantastic. And a 5-day. Cyan. Actually, I like when it's connected. I'm sorry. I like when it's connected. The stair step's cool, but I do prefer that it's actually connected. So we're going to go with this, I believe is the correct. Yeah, go with that. 10-day fix. Let's go with the 5-day. Fix that one. All right. So there's your 10 and your 5-day moving average, right? And on the futures, this is with extended hours turned on, which doesn't really matter because it takes the closing price. But nonetheless, you're opening slightly below the 5 and you're coming into the 10. Right? So that's the watch as we approach maybe the bottom end of this range in there. Mamba mentality forever with the Canadian $6.99. Appreciate the weekly videos and consistent market opens. Your demeanor doesn't change, irrespective of volatility. It's helped me in a big way. Appreciate that, Mamba. Yeah, I mean that's the deal, right? Once you've been in these markets for a while, right? You've seen all the things there are to see. Although I will say this is one of the strongest markets I've ever seen. It's definitely outside the scope of what we had off the 2020 rebound low out of sickness. Once you've seen it all, right, and you've done it all, most importantly, once you've made all the stupid mistakes and you realize, you just got to show up and do the same thing day in and day out, day in and day out, and day in and day out. Same thing over and over and over again. There's a time to press the gas. There's a time to take the foot off the gas pedal. You just got to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yes, appreciate that. I'm glad the consistency has been useful. And prior to that, we had Darren Jones with the 10 in the chat. Here's some more cash. We're up at, or I should say down south at the southern office, but up north, no siree, no desk heater over here for the coffee mug. Anyways, maybe I'll have to send one up this way. Anyways, appreciate that, Darren, and appreciate that, Mamba. Let's go ahead and grab a sip of this cold coffee. That way we can at least enjoy it while it's lukewarm, room temperature. I'm gonna have to nuke this thing. It means an additional mug transfer in just a bit. All right, ES futures 4-hour chart, right? The main idea that we've just been talking about is there's plenty of room for a 4-hour higher low. There's no changing my mind about that, right? This is an uptrend. You're pulling back from literally the highest high in the trend count. There is room for a higher low. Let's drop it down to the hourly chart. Let's get a little bit more granular. Got to save a little bit of time for some database archiving on today's episode. One of the things that I sometimes forget down here in the, or I should say up here in the northern office, is that trash is not in the same building. I gotta go lug that stuff out to the street. Um, Friday, trash day. Okay, ES futures hourly chart. What do we have going on here? A little bit of a violation of this level, which I think is interesting this morning. I think a stronger market, geez, should I even use that term? A stronger market. What more could we ask for this market? But you get my point. A market that was going to be finding dip buyers like almost immediately probably would have supported in here around the what did we call this? 74.50. That's right. 74.50 level that we've had over the last couple of days, primarily starting from this high back here. You'll just notice that we've overshot that in the pre-market session. Now, I don't think it means that the level is broken and destroyed for forever, but I do believe that an open underneath is just going to be a little bit more problematic, right? Because it means if we do rally and reject in here, right, you're probably looking for at least Wednesday's low, if not a break of that 10-day moving average, which aligns more so with the cash ETF coming into, of course, the big bad level, which we've talked about many times, 73.73. That one we don't even need to rack our brains about at all. 73.73 is a very familiar level, right? So that's kind of the, not problem, but that's the main thing I'm seeing here with the ES opening underneath this level from back over here. Once again, 74.50. 74.50. Not a, oh my goodness, the ship is sinking, jump off, and it's going to zero, but just kind of a it's up. We are kind of sweeping what I would consider what would have been the cleanest area of potential support. That's that. Let's continue along, though, into the positive outlook from the pessimistic look, of course, as that pullback deepens towards the 73.73 down here. Let's talk about what happens if the market reclaims this area. I mean, my God, you're at least looking for the gap close. You're probably looking for acceptance back inside the range. And as long as we get acceptance back over previous day's low, the market is just, insatiable is the word I used in the morning write-up note this morning. Insatiable demand for getting long equities, if that's the case, if you find a higher low inside of the previous day's range. So yes, we are opening on a gap down. Yes, we reclaim this. The first thought should be previous day's low and then rejection of previous day's low to sustain some kind of an hourly lower high. But that wouldn't change the hourly trend until we actually take out the morning low. Then we would have some kind of official lower low, right? And if you really want to split hairs with me, you could say this needs to break, right? Around that 7,400. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the 15-minute chart. Let's get a little bit more granular here. Let's keep moving through the time frames. And I mean, what a nice day yesterday in terms of impressive upward grind and then just nice sideways consolidation here. Pretty solid stuff in terms of bull flag at the high of day. Now, of course, when it relates to market profile, whenever you get your high tight close like that, it just means that it's going to be easier to topple the profile, right? This is a term, maybe we put a registered trademark, copywritten, the whole 9 yards on this thing over the next couple of weeks. But, this term toppling the profile, when the value is bunched up at the high of the day, if you open in range, right, that's fine, no problem. You can, of course, seek full flag continuation. But if you break the bottom end of the flag, right, of course, you just topple the value, which means that the buyers in there are now a little bit disappointed. Looks like they've toppled the value through the overnight session is the main point that I'm trying to get at here. And we are pushing back down underneath the single prints, underneath that level we just talked about on the hourly. 74.50 is being broken as of right now. Once again, end of the world. Oh my God, the market's going to crash and burn and go to zero. Probably not, but I would just pay attention to what side of this level we accept on today. There's really three zones that I would attack this market from in terms of perspective on today's session, right? The three zones are probably as follows. Previous day's range, pretty straightforward. Let's break out the cyan crayon. This right here, I think, is also pretty straightforward. That's this little, no man's land, if you will. It's over the key inflection point from the hourly chart, but it's under your previous day's low, right? So a little bit of a no man's land in there. That's zone number 2. And then anything else is just underneath that zone, right? Something in here. So these are the three zones that I would start to view the market through as a lens for today's session. Up here is about as bullish as it gets, right? You are bulls on parade. Oh my God, rip the new all-time highs. Once again, insatiable demand for equities, buying the gap down with both hands, looking for upside, right? That is what we've got there. In here, neutral, but absolutely bullish, right? Why would I say neutral to bullish? Because it's a reclaim of the 1 hour level, right? If you're back above this, then great. I mean, technically speaking, this, if the open is just going to mark the low of day, right? If you have open equals low as the bar type today, if you have an OEL candle, open equals low. For anybody who doesn't know, that's just a solid green body bar that looks like this. Maybe there's an upper wick or whatever, but there's no lower wick. Open equals the low. If it's immediately an opening drive to the upside. If it's an OEL, then and you're in here, great, bulls, right? Bulls technically reclaim this level and you have a 1 hour higher low, right? Higher low potentially on OEL candle. Oops, maybe that's the way to draw it. Okay. That's that. And then, of course, if you do reject this and you're just kind of coming down in here, we'll get into the simplified pathing in just a second. But if we do not get above that, if we stay in, let's just say this is 1, this is 2. If we stay in zone 3 today, we're in zone 3, then okay, I think the pullback probably continues, right? Because But honestly, if you're
Good morning. This is Horizon's Middle East and Africa, our top stories this morning. President Trump and Xi Jinping set to wrap up a summit that's delivered little in the way of tangible deals, with China's leader warning that Taiwan is the issue that could trigger dangerous clashes. China now calling for an urgent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, as Trump says Washington can live without access to the waterway. And raising the stakes for Starmer, the Manchester mayor now seeking to join the race to challenge the UK Prime Minister. We are live at Downing Street with the latest. Well, it's just gone 8 a.m. across the Emirates. I'm Shimona Bersetti in Dubai. As we speak, I believe President Trump is wrapping up his trip. Very immune to political developments in the UK, but yesterday it did react to the news that the Manchester mayor, Andy Burnham, now has a pathway potentially to get a parliamentary seat. And if he does get a parliamentary seat, then he could actually mount a leadership contest versus the UK Prime Minister. So there's a lot of sequencing there. But the point is, the pound has started to react to some of the political turmoil in the UK. Switching over and speaking of prices, energy prices moving upwards. Remember, this week we had CPI, PPI, both of them surprised to the upside, specifically on the wholesale. And then you can see that this is having an impact on fixed income. 10 US Treasuries are now firmly through 4.5%. So moving up in line with those inflationary pressures. Okay, let's continue the conversation. And Lisa, April Hong of the report for us. April, walk us through the price action this morning.
Yeah, against the backdrop of globally what we're seeing in yields marching higher, along with the climb in the dollar for all of this week, this is where you're left with on Asia stocks. It is risk off. And of course, part of it is concern from the US president's talk about how, hey, they don't need the strait to open. So increasingly sounding like a forever war for the US, and the inflationary impact is a concern. So you're seeing the TAIEX, which at one point was 1.5% higher, thanks to a jump in profit for Honhai, which of course is an NVIDIA partner. You're looking 0.5% down. The cost of 8,000 at one point. Now it's at the biggest loss we've seen on the page since early April. The impact of the war are showing up in Japan data, PPI, highest since 2023, and that's playing out in bonds in Japan as well after the pressure we already saw just a day ago. The yield on the 10-year at one point moved about 7 basis points. Jumana?
April, thank you so much. April Hong in Singapore. President Trump and China's Xi Jinping are set to wrap up their 36-hour summit shortly after discussions on trade and business deals were overshadowed by the Chinese leader's warning that mishandling Taiwan could lead to conflict.
It was a fantastic day. And in particular, I want to thank President Xi, my friend, for this magnificent welcome. And it really was a magnificent welcome like none other. And for so graciously hosting us on this very historic state visit. We had a extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today.
The people of China and the United States are great peoples. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can go hand in hand. We can help each other succeed and advance the well-being of the whole world.
Let's go to Beijing now and our Chief North Asia correspondent, Stephen Engel. Stephen, as I'm speaking to you now, it seems as though the two leaders are wrapping up their trip. Trump has described it as being a great couple of days. He says that he discussed Iran with Xi, and then goes on to reiterate that they do want the strait to be open. And then Xi is being reported as saying they've reached a new milestone for the U.S.-China relationship. So what are exactly the tangible deliverables that have been delivered from this 36-hour whirlwind trip?
Yeah, I don't mean to be a pessimist, but it didn't go off the rails, right? So that's a good thing because of all the acrimony over the last year had been built up. Sure, 6 months ago, they met in Busan. We were there. We saw the camaraderie. I mean, it wasn't as warm as we've seen over the last 24 hours, where the two gentlemen were very cordial with each other, if not beaming. And, there was a camaraderie. Let's just put it that way. And that's why, beyond the cordial attitude, there was this state media post about the comments that Xi Jinping made behind closed doors about Taiwan directly to Donald Trump. That was not in front of the cameras, but was very deliberately put out before the meeting even ended. Probably the most blunt message that Xi Jinping, at least face to face with a U.S. leader, has given, essentially saying, U.S.-China ties are they hinge really on how the Taiwan situation. If they're not handled right, it could lead to a very dangerous situation. It is the most important issue for China, he says, in U.S.-China relations. So that could have sort of sent things off the rails, but Donald Trump, uncharacteristically, sort of has stayed quiet when asked about it. Marco Rubio says, as of we stand right now, there's no change in the view of how the United States view the Taiwan situation. Also, senior diplomats from America have told Bloomberg News that both sides know how each other feel about the Taiwan situation. So that has not derailed this summit, but it did sort of punctuate and detract perhaps the dialogue that Iran was going to overshadow these talks. Iran has not overshadowed these talks. Taiwan has.
Yeah. Well, it was always going to be a big ask to expect some form of a breakthrough around Iran coming out of this 36-hour summit.
Right.
But we did get a second date. So we know that the White House has also invited Xi to come visit in September of this year. So perhaps the conversation can continue then. Stephen, what about all of those executives that flew over? What have we got in terms of actual commercial deals here?
Yeah, probably less than we were expecting at this time leading up to the summit. There was a lot of speculation with Jensen Huang getting on the jump seat of Air Force One in Anchorage and coming here at the last minute, that there could be a possible deal on the H-200 ships or even the less powerful H-20. We haven't gotten an announcement yet. In fact, my colleague Anne-Marie Hordern had a fantastic interview with Jameson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, earlier this morning on Bloomberg Television here in Asia, here out of Beijing, essentially saying, you know what, chip export controls were not even discussed in that 2.5-hour state bilateral meeting between Trump and Xi, which is a surprise. We thought that this was going to be one of the key deliverables. We did get some news about Boeing jets. You mentioned that, I believe, at the top. 200 jets or thereabouts, not the 500 that was speculated in the market. So that was a little bit of less than expected. But we still need to flesh out those details from Boeing or from those orders if they do come to fruition. Keep in mind, back in 2020, China did order a big order of jets. It never came to fruition because of COVID. So again, this is, speculation on how far China will fulfill that. Beef is coming back to Chinese households. Soybeans, according to Jameson Greer, they're coming back. We'll have to wait on some of the other commercial deals.
Bloomberg's chief North Asia correspondent, Stephen Engel, thank you so much for your reporting the last couple of days. Joining us now is Julia Rockneford, senior lecturer at the School of Law and Governance at Harvard University in Malaysia. Julia, good to have you with us. Would you describe this trip as having been a success for President Trump?
It depends how you define success. I think it hasn't been very fruitful meeting, not what Donald Trump probably expected sometime earlier into the war with Iran. He was, I think, expecting to come to see Xi as almost a victor in that conflict and to dictate some of the conditions, to Xi in particular to lift some of the restrictions that China imposed on the export of the rare earth elements, but that has not happened. The war with Iran subsided, but is still de facto continuing. So despite Trump trying to present it as highly successful, great meeting of the two friendly, great nations, or how President Xi put it, on the path to development that they could do together, that's the most important relationship globally, it wasn't much. Yeah, there was an interesting point that I think it's not a coincidence that China probably tried to make. At the same time, there was a visit of the president of Tajikistan taking place. What do you make of it? Of a small country which somehow it wasn't cleared out of the schedule of the Chinese president. And in fact, more attention was given to it in the China media than to the visit of Donald Trump.
At least on the first day, I believe. I want to ask you about China on Iran. It took a couple of days for the foreign ministry to actually say anything, and it was only this morning that they put out a couple of comments saying that they're urging the reopening of the waterway as soon as possible, urging to solve the Iran nuclear issue, but through dialogue, saying that the war should not continue. How do you read those comments coming through from China and their appetite to actually be involved in some of the diplomatic discussions?
It's more, I find it as being more of a performative statement on this. Of course, China is dedicated to peace, and that's why it has been backing Pakistan as a mediator, and it would like to see the Strait of Hormuz open. But at the same time, China has not been that affected as probably was expected on the part of Donald Trump and his administration, because it still relies on its energy mix. It relies a lot on coal and a lot on renewables. And besides that, some of the Iranian oil tankers were able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz and to deliver oil to China. And China also stocked up on oil and gas before the current war unfolded. So there is not much of the pressure that China is experiencing there. According to Donald Trump, President Xi agreed not to supply weapons to Iran, but that also doesn't tell us much, because China, there has been no proof that China has been supplying weapons per se to Iran, but intelligence and targeting data, that wasn't mentioned, and China probably will continue doing that, because that's what it's likely has been doing since the start of this war. So on that front, I know the issue has been touted a lot, especially in the American media, that is going to be big on the agenda, Iran, but not much also is coming out of it.
Yeah, agreed. Julianne, of course, attention has shifted elsewhere in the past week, but we're still very much in a situation of an impasse, a stalemate on US-Iran. The Strait still effectively shut or being monitored, controlled, however you want to call it. How do you see things evolving from here? How are we going to break the impasse?
There is resistance on the part of Trump to resume the conflict. And I don't know, maybe he thought that he can come out with something from the meeting with Xi, which seems to be mostly, as your colleague just pointed out, the agricultural deals and not much more than that. So he'll lay back on the plan B, so to speak, bring in the business elite with him. Saying that and thinking about his unwillingness to resume this conflict, it might enter the frozen stage for a while until some sort of negotiations will be resumed. Because despite of everything that is being said by the the State Department or by Pete said, Iran still has the capacity to inflict a lot of damage, to provide for the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And in fact, it has been even restructuring the whole situation in the Strait of Hormuz by establishing effective control over it. So it's not just a blockade, but it's trying to define the new status quo in there. And maybe in that frozen state, the US will have to slowly pull out and lay back on the option of negotiations and reaching something that would be reminiscent of GCPOA.
Yeah. Okay. Julia, thank you so much. Julia Rockneford, Senior Lecturer at the School of Law and Governance at Taylor's University in Malaysia. Now, still ahead, we get the market outlook with Near Vision Wealth Management as fresh comments from Governor Trump on State of reignites inflation fears. This is Bloomberg.
I moved to New York City from India. The only dream which I had was to be a physician. But when I arrived here, I thought there was something missing. So that's when I started working on Wall Street, covering pharmaceutical stocks. I wanted to learn different skills to expand my impact in medicine. Then I moved to Silicon Valley and founded Unicisive. Finding my own path opened up opportunities to help people that I couldn't have imagined.
You go through the financial markets looking for a secure tomorrow, only to find unpredictability around every corner. That's why the wise investor turns to Assured Guarantee, because the municipal bonds we insure guarantee timely payments of your principal and interest in full, making them one of the most secure investments on Wall Street or any other street. Assured Guarantee, the proven leader in municipal bond insurance.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Joanna Versace in Dubai. Stocks are under pressure after President Trump told Fox News the U.S. doesn't need the Strait of Hormuz to open, raising concerns over inflationary pressures. Joining me now is Ryan Lamond, Neo Vision Wealth Management CEO and co-founder. Well, Ryan, you're joining us from Paris today. And, both you and I are active users of LinkedIn. And I want to draw viewers to a post that you put up a couple of days ago of the culinary type. You posted a picture of an ice cream that you were picking up from, I think it is Bouza Bashir. I think it was Ashta ice cream. And I got myself thinking, are you beginning to see higher food prices show up because of the energy shock from the region? Tell us about the cost of your Bouza Bashir.
Absolutely. Costs are rising. We've seen it on PPI. We're seeing it on CPI. We will see it on PCE. We're going back to higher and higher inflation. This will take time to resolve itself. We're not seeing higher oil prices because of what you mentioned a bit earlier. It's reserves. Particularly China has massive reserves. However, other countries do not have that luxury. As soon as these reserves get really close to being depleted, and we should see that around this is when we're going to see much higher oil prices, and all of this will translate into more and more inflation. I've been talking to you for quite a few years now, and I always said inflation does not come in one cycle only, it comes in multiple cycles. We're going to see something very similar to the 1970s scenario.
Yeah, and indeed, many industry leaders from the energy space are warning about that happening, right? I mean, the IEA obviously continue to repeat that this is the largest energy shock. We hear leaders, CEOs of companies, energy companies around the world warning that things are really about to start getting perhaps a lot tighter in the next month. What does that do to the what appears to be the Teflon trade that is AI right now?
So basically, in the case when faced with inflation, what we do, us investment managers, is obviously invest as much as possible to protect against that inflation. And usually go for stock markets because they usually protect the most against inflation. We don't go to fixed income because interest rates rise up because central banks fighting inflation. Now, in the case of the tech trade, we decided to stay away again because we believe this is a bubble. It's completely overblown. The S&P 500 today, when you invest into it, you're actually investing into tech. You're not getting diversification. So that's why we're going towards geographic diversification across the world and across asset classes. As you know, we still have 25% of our portfolio in gold. We have Swiss equities, we have Brazil, a few other emerging markets, which have done very, very well without the risk of overvaluation that we're seeing in tech stocks, which I have a few question marks on the business model around AI in the US. So this is how we're positioning. Just one last point regarding gold.
Yeah.
If you look at gold, if you look at it year to date, over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years, it has beaten the S&P 500.
Okay, yeah, no, I know that you are definitely a gold bull, and we've discussed it many times. And I see from your notes that you've got about 25% of your portfolio allocated to gold. I just want to go back to something else, which I think is becoming a bit of a technical feature in the S&P as well. And you raised this in your notes. 0 day to expiration options account now for about 60% of total S&P options. To what extent do you think this may be driving some of the recent uptick that we've been seeing in the S&P?
Well, it has been creating the momentum that has been driving the S&P and the tech stocks higher and higher. Now, what's even more dangerous is that this is mainly driven by retail investors. So this is quite dangerous as well. Add to it the negative gamma of dealers. This is even an additional danger. Now, let's look, where is this coming from? Where's funding is coming from? This is coming from M2. And if you look at M2 in the US, monetary base, it's the record high. The US economy and the financial system is flushed with cash. The Federal Reserve is buying treasuries again, balance sheets rising up again. So liquidity coming into the system. Add to it the famous yen carry trade, which is still in place, and that's why I think Treasury Secretary Percent was in Tokyo to speak with the Japanese, because he does not want the Japanese to sell treasuries to defend the yen or increase interest rates, because this will break the carry trade, and these daytime options will basically no longer be, and this will break the whole tech trade that we're seeing at the moment, which is driven by retail ultimately.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your prognosis on the markets here. Ryan Malone, CEO and co-founder of NeoVision Wealth Management. Now for a look at some of the other stories we're following today. An Indian flagged ship reportedly sank in the Strait of Hormuz this week after coming under attack near the coast of Oman. The Wall Street Journal cites India's foreign ministry saying that Omani authorities had rescued all the crew after the attack without saying who was behind it. Meanwhile, the U.S. military says it has redirected 72 commercial vessels and disabled 4 since the start of its blockade of the waterway. Federal Reserve Governor Stephen Miron says he will resign once incoming Chair Kevin Warsh is sworn in, or shortly before. The move was expected, as Warsh will take Miron's seat on the Fed's Board of Governors. Miron says he supports Warsh's plans to overhaul Fed communications and balance sheet policy. He also says the outgoing chair, Jerome Powell, can assist in the transition.
Transitions are important. And I think that, it is maybe helpful to have someone there to give advice, but I still think it's important that it be a transition, because you want to have people's loyalties undivided. You want to have there be very clearly one chairman. You want to have a place where there's no question about who's in charge, and there's no talk of rival factions and things being split.
Cuba has run out of the fuel oil it needs to keep its power plants running as civil unrest begins to stir. Social media posts show sporadic protests breaking out, with people banging pots and in some cases lighting fires. President Miguel Diaz-Canel blames Donald Trump's pressure campaign, posting on X that the dramatic decline in conditions is due to what he calls genocidal U.S. energy blockade. Indian billionaire Gautam Adani has agreed to pay $6 million to resolve the U.S. SEC's fraud case against him. Adani's nephew Sagar, who is also part of the proceedings, has agreed to pay $12 million. The Adanis refuse to admit to any wrongdoing in the SEC settlement deal. U.S. courts will still need to approve the Adani settlement deal before the terms are finalized. And let's take a look at how equity markets are faring. It is the final trading day of the week, a big one from a geopolitical perspective, with President Trump rounding up his summit with President Xi in Beijing, heading out shortly in what he is describing as a great trip. But I will say, in terms of actual takeaways for the market, not a whole lot to go on here. For the week as a whole, S&P and the Nasdaq are tracking gains. S&P is up 2.2% for the week, Nasdaq up 3.2% as we continue to speak about strong micro drivers. But overnight, the tone has turned a little bit more negative, with all of these indices pointing to negative. Take a look at European markets, also down 1% as well, as the traders possibly account for a sustained suspension, or at least effective closure around the Strait of Hormuz. So no breakthrough coming through from China. Now, coming up, the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa says the continent will need more financing as fuel and fertilizer costs rise. Another impact that the effective closure of the strait is having on global commodities. We'll bring you a conversation with him next. This is Bloomberg. Good morning. This is Horizon's Middle East and Africa. Our top stories this morning. President Trump and Xi Jinping set to wrap up a summit that's delivered little in the way of tangible deals, with China's leader warning that Taiwan is the issue that could trigger dangerous clashes. China now calling for an urgent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, as Trump says Washington can live without access to the waterway.
They say rain on your wedding day is good luck, and at Windsor Jewelers, it could mean so much more. If it rains an inch or more on your wedding day, your engagement ring is on us. So pick the perfect Windsor ring and pray for a little rain.
Hiring a lawyer after an accident can make a real difference. It may be the difference between hoping you get better versus getting the medical treatment that you really need. Or the difference between wasting time arguing with insurance companies.
A candlestick chart looks so simple and familiar, but there's so much more behind it. Do you want to look deeper into the market? Let's.
Thanks to Starmer, the Manchester mayor now seeking to join the race to challenge the UK Prime Minister. We are live at Downing Street with the latest. Well, it has just gone 8:30 a.m. across the Emirates. I'm Joanna Bersetchi in Dubai. A bit of a risk-off tone prevailing this morning. Abir Abu Ahmad is here to walk us through the price action. Abir.
Good morning, Joanna. Well, look, the market seems to have forgotten about the Xi-Trump meeting that happened yesterday. We're now full back in focus to the Iran story. And those comments from President Trump to Fox News saying that he doesn't need the Strait of Hormuz to open at all. And that's reflecting across the S&P futures this morning, now down 0.4%. We also seem to have forgotten about the AI euphoria, the tech story, the earnings that are coming out of the United States that have led to multiple rallies. S&P closing again at a record high yesterday. Today, as you mentioned, a risk-off sentiment is prevailing in markets. Asian equities down 1.4%, led by South Korea's Kospi. So the yo-yo moves in South Korea's main gauge is having an impact on Asian equities. It was down more than 3% earlier in the day. Now, the one thing that's in the green today is oil. Brent is ticking up higher 1.2%, $107 a barrel. Now, this is a note from our MLive team earlier saying that the next few weeks we'll see a stronger dollar, a slump in stocks, and high volatility across risk assets. And this is because of the return to the Iran war and that escalation in the tone that we saw from President Trump earlier, despite him talking to his Chinese counterpart about finding a solution, but both agreed no nuclear weapon in Iran. Now, the inflationary risks that stem from this increase in oil prices and the CPI report that we saw earlier in the week in the United States is also leading to a gain in the 10-year Treasury yields, now gaining 4 basis points, Jumana, in the 10-year notes. We're also seeing similar moves in the 2-year notes and the 30-year notes.
Bloomberg's Abir Abu Hamad in Dubai for us. Thank you. Now, President Trump says China is willing to support negotiations with Iran as Washington pushes for a diplomatic resolution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In an interview with Fox News, Trump said she assured him Beijing would not supply military equipment to Tehran. more, let's speak to Bloomberg's executive editor for MENA and Russia, Stuart Livingston-Wallace. I'm also just going to bring some fresh comments. Just as Trump was wrapping up the meeting, he said, "We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar on Iran. We want that to end, and we don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open." And so again, a bit of a contradiction to what he said perhaps a couple of hours earlier in the Fox interview. Essentially, though, Stuart, have we got anything out of this summit that could push forward diplomatic discussions vis-a-vis Iran?
Nothing visible, but that doesn't mean that something might not happen. I think what's interesting here is there appears to be an attempt by Iran to bring China out of that by saying we will let Chinese ships through. That was announced yesterday. We'll see what happens. It said 10 ships went through, but of course there's a US blockade that they've got to get through as well.
Yeah.
It is, however, it is absolutely true to say that this is in China's interest to get Hormuz open again. Hormuz fundamentally flows eastwards, not westwards. It is Asia that has the most at stake with us.
Yeah. What is the status of the strait now? And I feel it's a question that we revisit every week, but it seems like there are a trickle of vessels getting through, but then also a vessel got seized yesterday.
Yeah, so it's very hard to tell. You're absolutely right. There are a trickle of vessels getting through. We often don't find out about it until some time after the fact because the transponders go back on when they're sort of off the coast of India or something similar like that. However, what's interesting, if you look in the physical oil market, there are spot cargoes being offered of things like Iraqi Basra grades. Now, that is an indication that something probably got through, but it is an only indication. So the moment is a little bit smoke and mirrors, but look, it is fair to say nothing like the normal volumes.
So what I find interesting is it's been almost 3 months now, and it's sort of evolved into this frozen conflict. There's an impasse around the strait, unclear where we're going to go diplomatically. At the same time, you are hearing from more and more business leaders from around the world expressing their support in the region. Yesterday, one of our colleagues, Caroline Hyde, was speaking to former Barclays CEO Bob Diamond, who says, "I probably have more confidence today in the leadership and future of economies like Qatar and the UAE than I did before the Iran conflict." That's quite a big statement.
Yeah, and it's not isolated. You've seen these sort of statements from lots of business leaders, particularly from the investment community. There have been these sporadic reports of, deal making is going to slow, deal making. There's no evidence whatsoever of that. I think there is perhaps a refocus in terms of what the priorities are, and you've seen that in all the Gulf countries because clearly the situation has changed. But all the reporting we've done has shown that the investors continue to come into the region, deals are still getting done.
Yeah, and I spoke to Bill Ford, the CEO of General Atlantic, earlier this week. They just received a $500 million commitment from the QIA to your point that deals and chunky deals are still being executed. Yep. Stuart, thank you so much. Stuart Livingston-Wallace, Bloomberg's executive editor for MENA and Russia. A third round of direct negotiations between Israel and Lebanon has begun in Washington. The talks come days before the expiration of a truce that reduced but didn't stop the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. Bloomberg's Dan Williams joins us from Jerusalem. The backdrop to all of this is this very shaky ceasefire that's going on right now in Lebanon. How much success have these talks actually yielded so far?
I think it would be fair, Jemana, to say that these talks are largely about keeping up appearances. That is not as trite as it may sound, given that just a few months ago, you could be penalized by law, perhaps prosecuted in Lebanon for even discussing the idea of peace with Israel. And now you have open negotiations between the sides, between the government in Beirut and the Israeli government, hosted by the United States. As you noted, the firing continues. The bloodshed, the mounting death toll, certainly in Lebanon. And just an hour ago, the Israelis published the name of another soldier killed in a Hezbollah mortar attack. So very much in doubt as to whether this could be described as a full ceasefire. However, it has to a degree delimited the fighting to southern Lebanon, reducing attacks by Hezbollah across the border into Israel and attacks by Israel on Beirut. I think the idea is, certainly when it comes to the Trump administration, to keep up the idea that somehow they may come up with a formula for defanging Hezbollah and bringing those countries together, and at the very least keeping up a narrative of peacemaking in parallel to what would appear to be an Iran war that is on the path to be resumed very soon.
Yeah, I want to bring back to you what you just said, which is keeping up the narrative of peacemaking. How do you move forward from here? And what basis are they going to move forward, given, again, the considerable sticking points that still exist, including the absence of a full ceasefire per the Lebanese government, and from Israel's perspective, the lack of a full plan to disarm Hezbollah?
If you ask the Israelis, the formula is to get rid of or drive back Hezbollah in a way that the Lebanese have undertaken to do for several years, including as part of a UN Security Council resolution. However, the Lebanese army is widely regarded as potentially well-intentioned now, but lacking the capacity to take on the militia that remains very well armed despite having been degraded by 2 years of intense fighting with Israel. It's potentially here that the Israelis are trying to further degrade Hezbollah to the point where the Lebanese may feel emboldened to take them on. Potentially behind the scenes of these talks, there are negotiations about Israel providing intelligence support, the Americans providing increased aid to the Lebanese military so that they can carry out that task. But yes, the big open question on progress here is how can Hezbollah be dealt with in a manner that would satisfy the Israelis that their northern security has been taken care of, and would satisfy the Lebanese in that the Israelis can finally withdraw from those outposts set up in southern Lebanon, and of course allow the return of hundreds of thousands of Lebanese civilians that were driven out of their homes in southern Lebanon when Israel launched that recent offensive against Hezbollah there.
Bloomberg's Dan Williams in Jerusalem. Thank you so much for the reporting. Well, the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz is raising the cost of fuel and fertilizer imports across Africa, increasing pressure on some of the continent's most vulnerable economies. The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Abdullah Al-Musaiba, told us exclusively that the lender is stepping up trade finance support to help manage the shock.
Most of the fuel and fertilizers comes from the Gulf region. And when they close the Hormuz, its effect on not only Africa, on all over the world. And Africa part of this world. So when they close, they have to go to other markets and the prices goes up. And that gives us a responsibility to offer more money for the African countries so they can buy the fertilizers and the fuel for their countries. So it's change. It's need more money. It's need more effort because they will try to find other markets than the markets that they used to. So we put more money for trade finance pillar that we finance. When I said more, the LC or the trade finance operation that we finance cost, let's say 100 million, that will be 150. The ones that cost 150, it will goes up. It depends on the country and how much it needs. But everything goes up and we have to provide them with to help them in their these few months.
So your analysis of the risk assessment of some of these countries, it seems like it hasn't changed then. Is that fair to say? It seems like you're deploying more capital, not holding back.
Yeah, of course, it's our duty because our mandate is to work in the African countries, the 44 African sub-Sahara countries. And if we don't stand with them now, so it's not our work. Our work and our mandate is to help them. Maybe we cannot help them in the finance more in the private or the public sector, but in trade finance, they need more.
Abdullah Al-Musaibi, president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, speaking with Bloomberg's Jennifer Zapazaja. Now for a look at some of the other stories we're following. An IMF delegation is in Cairo to conduct a 7th review of its extended fund facility program and a 2nd review of its resilience and sustainability facility. The IMF says the reviews could be completed over the summer if a staff-level agreement is reached, paving the way for a roughly $1.6 billion disbursement pending board approval. Bob Diamond has praised the governments of the UAE and Qatar for their response to the Iran war. The former Barclays CEO says the two countries strengthened their standing through strong economic management during a period of regional crisis. Diamond says he now has greater confidence in the leadership and future of the UAE and Qatar economies than before the conflict. Buyout firms General Atlantic and KKR say they continue to see fundraising and investment opportunities in the Middle East despite the Iran war. The firms say the region's deep pools of sovereign wealth funds are still being managed with a long-term perspective, with investors continuing to deploy billions of dollars into global deals. General Atlantic and KKR also say they remain committed to expanding their presence in the Gulf as regional economies push ahead with diversification plans. Coming up, DP World says the Iran war is beginning to push up costs across Africa. Our conversation with DP World Sub-Saharan Africa CEO Mohamed Akouji next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Dumana Versace in Dubai. DP World says the Iran war is beginning to push up costs across Africa as higher fuel prices and supply chain disruptions ripple through the region. In an exclusive interview, Mohamed Akouji, DP World Sub-Saharan Africa CEO, says the impact will deepen if the Strait of Hormuz remains shut.
Yeah, it's had a huge impact because obviously, supply chains are being disrupted through what is going on in Iran must have an impact on Africa. A lot of our cargo comes through the Middle East into Africa. So definitely we've seen certain markets on the East Coast being impacted. The West Coast less impacted in our business on the ports and terminal side. But what we have seen is shipping lines now doing direct services on the East Coast, which has mitigated some of the volumes. So our business is dealing with the current situation. Well, obviously the fuel price impacts has a huge impact on our logistics business because we operate over 7,000 trucks on the continent. So we've got to increase our pricing, and that's not great because that results in inflation. So I think the impact on the consumer and the economies in Africa of what's going on in Iran will start flowing through, and that's not good for the consumer economic growth. So so far limited impact, but certainly if this war continues and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, then there'll be a deeper impact on Africa from our perspective.
What are the numbers for me? Because you spoke about the price of fuel increasing and you subsequently having to increase your prices.
So fuel has increased in a market like South Africa, where we have our biggest fleet, probably 75%. And then in terms of our contracts, fuel is a big component of our cost, and we pass that through to our customers, who then pass that on to the end consumer. So in a market like South Africa, we work for retailers, FMCG companies, healthcare companies. So ultimately that, has a knock-on impact on the cost of fuel, cost of everything. So that's the impact it's had on our business. But we don't take fuel risk. So, we have to find a way to pass it on.
Mohamed Akouji, DP World Sub-Saharan Africa CEO, speaking to Jennifer Zabazadeh there. Now for a look at some of the other stories we're following. Abu Dhabi's Libad Holding is joining local and global partners in an investment venture targeting $30 billion of infrastructure projects. The move underscores the central role the new sovereign wealth fund is likely to play in the Emirates' ambitions. The venture will target opportunities across energy, transportation, logistics, and waste management in the GCC and Central Asia. Abu Dhabi will build the first Sphere venue outside the US, with Yas Island selected as the location. The project will be backed by $1.7 billion in construction investment and will have capacity to host 20,000 people. Coming up, a potential new challenger to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is emerging inside the Labour Party. We'll have the latest next. This is Bloomberg.
Peter Piper persistently missed packages, so he scheduled his deliveries with Amazon Business. And positively.
Artificial intelligence. It's redefining how we design and manufacture products, how we build and operate infrastructure, from the phones in your hands to the cars you drive. It's allowing us to make grid cities, economies more efficient.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Jemana Bersachi in Dubai. A potential challenger to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has moved closer to a return to Parliament after Labour lawmakers stepped aside to open up a seat. Bloomberg's Alex Morgan joins us from Downing Street in London. So a lot of news coming through in the UK yesterday, but maybe let's just start with Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, and what could happen from here in terms of this by-election results and how that ultimately could impact potentially the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Well, morning, Jemana. They say a week is a long time in politics. We were talking just a week ago, rounding up those local election results, which were disastrous for the governing Labour Party. Well, here we are now. The consequences taking us all the way to Downing Street. Keir Starmer not yet facing a formal leadership challenge, but you can see his challengers circling. So who is Andy Burnham? Well, he's long seen as the greatest challenger to the Prime Minister. Polling-wise, well, it's predicted he would beat Keir Starmer in a head-to-head. He also holds a net positive rating with voters, according to YouGov. So he is seen by many, particularly on the left of the party, as the man who could not only take Keir Starmer's job, but could potentially lead Labour and take on the insurgent Reform Party, who we talked a lot about last week. That's Nigel Farage's party, who gained hugely in those local elections. Andy Burnham now lining up his path back to Parliament, step one. Then step two, if he wants to go for the leadership, he'd have to trigger a contest, and then we would be into the formal challenge. So it's a step closer, Jemana, but we are, if you like, in a bit of a phony war, not yet at the stage where Keir Starmer is facing a formal challenge at this moment.
And again, for those not super familiar with the weeds of UK politics, Andy Burnham is described as being from the soft left part of the Labour Party. What does that actually mean for markets, Alex? How does that translate to how markets could perceive him potentially mounting a leadership contest against Starmer?
Yeah, this is the big thing. I mean, we saw a nearly 1% drop in the pound just on the news that Andy Burnham was trying to return to Parliament. That news came after trading in gilts had closed yesterday. Obviously, we'll see what happens at ATM UK when trading opens. But we know that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves did an awful lot to roll the pitch, as it were, for Labour ahead of the general election. That was 2024, to say we are safe stewards of the economy. We're going to have these fiscal rules, which means we're not going to be borrowing for day-to-day spending. And investors have liked that. That was the stability they wanted. Now, we've seen already 30-year yields reach their highest since 1998, just on the instability around Starmer's position. The reason Burnham is seen as potentially ruffling the feathers of bond markets is he could loosen those fiscal rules. He could maybe lean to the left of the party. He's certainly their preferred candidate, and go for some more spending, loosening the government's purse strings in that sense. We'll be looking, of course, at 8 o'clock when the markets actually open. But at this stage, Burnham's past comments saying the country is in hock to the bond markets, he later said those were taken out of context, they might be coming back to haunt him.
Yeah. Alex, let me just ask you a question about timing. How long is this all going to take to play out, from the by-election to a potential leadership contest?
Well, Jemana, you mentioned the weeds of UK politics. We're going to have plenty of time to be wading through those, because the way this is going to go, it's not going to be instant. The Labour Party faces two choices, really. One, somebody who's currently in Parliament could trigger a leadership challenge now in 10 minutes, and that could kick off a shorter contest. That seems to be unlikely. They've not coalesced around a candidate with enough support. So if Andy Burnham is going to take this longer road to get back to Parliament, win a by-election, by the way, to do that, and kick off a contest, we're talking weeks, if not months, of this continued instability. This is the time that Keir Starmer and his allies have said that the Prime Minister is staying put on number 10 Downing Street. Rachel Reeves just yesterday warning that Labour should not plunge the country into chaos, her words, a leadership challenge. So we are looking, Jemana, not at a quick resolution to this, but a continuing instability, potentially this dragging on, this phony war phase for weeks and months.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like the impact that we had over here in this part of the world around the Strait. Bloomberg's Alex Morgan outside 10 Downing Street in London. Thank you so much. Well, let's round up the show with a look at how markets are faring. Equity futures, we have leaning towards negative, so a bit of a downer handover from Asian Pacific equities this morning. European markets, take a look at that, down 1.2%. I will tell you, one of the starkest drops has been on the KOSPI index, down 5.3% overnight. And that is in response to some of those semiconductors, the ones that had done extremely well the last couple of days, coming off a little bit. So Samsung and SK Hynix dragging there. So the setup not so positive, but over the course of the week, it has been a more positive week, and a lot of focus has been on that summit between Trump and Xi. Not a lot, though, in terms of actual deliverables for market participants. All right, that is it for Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Ivana Bersachi in Dubai. We'll be live from our London studio.
AI is changing everything. But that's your thing. Change. Like changing frenzy into fearlessness. Adobe is here for it because we're turning AI promise into marketing reality, where personalization feels more human. And customers feel more connected. When AI means marketing, ROI changes for the better. It starts with Adobe.
Shopping for tires used to really rub me the wrong way. That was before I went to TireRack.com. I chose mobile installation. A technician brought the tires right to my house.
Almost finished, her.
One of the little shoulder, not even shoulder. What the hell do I can't talk, dude. It is Big Friday or Monday. That button stair step kind of, but there's no stair stepping happening, so I can't call it that. But that rejection is clean. I would already be trimming this short as we move into here, as we move into this negative gamma zone again, because this could be an inverse head and shoulders here. Let me set this. Yeah, there we go. They could be trying to hold several supports here. Basically, every single one of these negative gamma levels, if it doesn't accelerate like it did right out of the open here, that acceleration is what we look for.
Take some off here.
We're gonna start seeing some support building here in this wide range we're in. So if I was short, I'd be trimming a little bit at each inflection point and then leave a runner for a new low of day.
Yeah, just take some off. Take profits off there. Took 3 contracts off, so we're just riding 2 contracts now.
Practicing sound risk management and forcing myself not to trade today on Friday. Fridays are my worst days. I'm not going to push it, but look at this rejection. We're already down.
We could maybe come back to the IB level. This is previous
Buddy, I think they're going to reach
IB low.
I want them to kick out the floor because
This is a massive.
Like to see that happen, but they failed to reclaim 74.30 on that pretty spectacular bet.
Sellers protected from previous session. We figured. Strong aggressive sellers come back here. We can come back down. We can come down, but it was just looks like it was just retracing it, perhaps to go rotate back up.
For negative 1.2, that's pretty damn close to a 2% day.
I don't really see strong buyers here. It's like sellers. This is still a seller's market.
Probably be a significant change in this area. We'll see in a couple minutes. Let me finish at VZLA.
Missed it on an NQ here. It would have been it's 47 ticks on NQ.
Yeah. After we saw those old positions and the way they closed out, that way.
It was SPX's IB right at XPX's IB low from last week. A few days ago. Level here.
It's slow and all inside, but it's also only
News.
What's up, Jose? Thanks for coming back, man. Are you Jose?
I don't know. Let's look at the calendar here.
Insult you if you're Spanish speaking Jose, or if you are a Portuguese.
Let's see. Next week we got Wednesday FOMC. Ooh. It's the set interest rates. Interest rates. FOMC rates. Are they gonna? The experts are casting a cut, but we'll see. Building permits on Thursday, and in housing on as well on Thursday.
Just
That's
know
about
that
it.
specific content
Massive Wednesday, the end of this month, next week.
is mostly education.
Ready for that.
I'm not sure backward. Hold on.
Wow.
Oh.
Everybody.
Our show is mostly entertainment with some flair of education, and Snorlax's Thursday show is kind of the opposite. A lot more education. Honestly, his shows are better, if you ask me. And I usually have a bias toward myself because I'm an arrogant prick. But his shows are a lot more important than ours, I would say.
His shows will be better if he starts laughing at his show.
Cash App has very much helped me save my money. What I needed. It's just there.
ShopBerlinPackaging.com for quick and easy online ordering of packaging supplies. Choose from more than 5,000 in stock items across every market category.
Here we're bouncing off of this over under pattern and also this low volume node area. Derek, no, I never really use my phone to trade. And I don't have, like, at the moment, I don't have any Tradeovate or TradingView prop accounts active. I'm only pretty much just using accounts based on risk through Sierra Chart. Let me open Discord because there's probably going to be some kind of announcement on different prop companies.
I'm trying to get a short on NQ here. If you can just swing back to give me a freaking premium. Yeah, this is still a bearish market.
If we get back to the green low volume node area, then I would look again for any signs of absorption. And possibly another bounce. Oh, you mean of this rotation right off the open? So a retracement from this high to this low? Yeah, this came back exactly at the optimal trade entry area between 6180 and like 75 right here at the New York Open. No, it's actually lower. It's here. Right there. But yeah, it got right back to the 75%.
This is a very key area on NASDAQ. There's 29,000, like 70s. We lose this, and I mean, after this, the next significant level would be the swing low here, the low of Tuesday. Then this ES, again, holding in this middle area, but then below that, 7403 would be the next, the 7400s would be the next big area on ES here. Let me change. I'm gonna change the thickness of this VWAP lines. This pink lines on the screen, this is a weekly and a monthly anchored VWAP. I just use those as a general confluence. There, I'm just making them a little thinner so they're not so distracting. But yeah, here overall, you can see NASDAQ, this entire area is one big fat high volume node from the weekly profile. And so we just reacted off of the bottom. See if we can keep holding this and start flipping other levels above. This area has a nice confluence here. The rolling VWAP from the daily open and the low volume node shown. So just waiting to see if we get up to that area again. Hey, David, how are you? Tala, no, it's only for Sierra chart. A lot of people ask me, to make it for Ninja, for Trading View, for
We all want more progress, more movement.
cater programming language and everything, and it's already been complicated enough just with Trading View. I mean with Sierra chart. I do all these things by myself. Like I don't use any outside help developing any of my chart books or indicators or anything. And also Sierra chart has a really nice distribution system where it's very secure and easy to share and manage. And it's obviously my main trading platform, so I mostly just focused on using it for developing it for Sierra chart. Trading View as well, I don't think they have the required data quality needed to make something like this. Like, I don't think they have true tick bid ask data. I'm just gonna set a sell order here and just have it waiting there. See, I mean, we might not get there, but I just want to have it ready in case we have a quick pop up while I'm like looking at other things. So here's NASDAQ right below this area that I'm watching again. If we can flip this zone here to support. And I have it here at 74.53. Okay, we're getting some higher buy volumes coming in. We're back to the highs here that rejected a little while ago. So NASDAQ making a new high for the session. Yes, is still a little behind here. Let's see if we come into this level. And again, I want to see immediately if we retest here, I want to see buying absorption. All the zones again, guys, that I color are all based off of the higher time frames, the hourly volume profiles. Okay, so it's tackling short here. Now, as far as targets, I think this big volume breakout would be the ideal area, right around the 21 EMA. Starting to get a lot of buy pressure, so NASDAQ is absorbing and pushing up. I like the rolling VWAP, that usually, even if it's very quick, you usually do get some kind of quick reaction off of it. Okay, just pushing through. NASDAQ. Let's see NASDAQ here. Similar area coming up to the top edge of the high volume node from the extended hours. Asian dude, welcome. Yes, so this zone. Flip it bullish. Or wall green and see if we can actually sustain above it. Hey, Ravenous, I had some issues earlier with Rhythmic, so I didn't execute on a good trade before. So far, not much, just had on ES. I'll stop out now before just now fading this move here. Now I'm just waiting and watching to see. And this zone here. They are looking. I'm looking at the heat map. Just cutting this. Yeah, you can see on the heat map, they're now adding on to the levels. So definitely upside momentum. Here you can see on NASDAQ how they've been adding these orange lines. This will be the higher liquidity areas. And as price keeps going up, they've been moving the support higher and higher. This pullback right here, we retested that higher liquidity area with a big sell execution that got absorbed. Oh. Rapness, yeah, this is a heat map that I made on Sierra chart. Overall, the logic to try to fade this area is good because we are, again, coming up to the top edge of this big high volume node from overnight. We are still finding resistance over by this high that we made around 7 a.m. But momentum is definitely up. I mean, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the stream. Why I hate trading all-time highs because it's either very hard to short because market can just start pushing and pushing up relentlessly. But then you don't want to be chasing the highs because then you're going to get, you can get trapped in a quick liquidation break to the downside as well. So ES getting above here, next significant area is going to be like 74.83. Pretty much this next low volume node. So this was the pullback right here at the Europe Open on this consolidation up here. This was right at London Open before they started pushing it down. So let's see if we come back and retest this zone and start finding some trapped sellers absorbed, then that could be a good signal to look to get long to push higher. Yeah, guys, as far as the streaming, I stream when my schedule allows, but I have a bunch of different things going on aside from trading itself. But my goal is to try to do maybe like 2 streams a week. Okay, we're backward testing here. So now this is where I'm going to start paying attention to see if we get any trap sellers on this pullbacks. I think a move back to like BWAP or the 21 EMA would be ideal there. And if we take a Fibonacci and measure that pullback, yeah, that will be right around like the 6180. It's always risky to try to get on a pullback very quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna wait and see if this actually pulls back further. Let's put both of them side by side. Look at the heat map. Yes. Been playing around with the colors. I mean, it obviously it doesn't look as slick as a book map platform, but you know, this way I save myself from having to pay for a whole other trading platform as well. And
Spring, the unofficial new year for tool people. A time to start new jobs and tackle new projects with new tools from Harbor Freight. Whether you're a pro,
so VWAP is right around 74.43. $74.50 right now is the level with the most liquidity. Again, in general, the order book is pretty thin. There's no like giant level at the moment. Didn't get that deep of a pullback as I wanted. You can see the indicator fired off buy there just above. See if it comes down or not. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's limited by the capacity of the platform. But yeah, I think it's just playing around with the color scheme. Probably I'm just gonna try to make it a little darker. I think just making the tones a little darker. Like here, if I go to the settings, probably try to make the tones of blue. Somewhat darker. Like here, if I test this out. Yeah, that made it somewhat darker, but yeah. I was testing it in using just like a grayscale tones. But I think I like to have
We're seeing a massive shift in the way consumers are engaging with brands. The future of marketing has never been.
You know, because anytime we have a liquidity grab, the liquidity grab, and give you some sauce right now, the liquidity grab is always going to be the best top of always. You know what that means? So when you're going through your setups, you always want to ask yourself, what's the best stop loss? Because that's where your stop loss should be. Now, if we go back in time and you're looking at the break of this high, if you were to the buy here, you probably put your stop loss here like most people did, and that's exactly what a market maker is going to come take out the liquidity. That's why I went there, check out your stop loss, right? So you have to ask yourself, as much as you want to put your stop loss here, is that the best spot? No. If you're taking buys here, the best spot is here for a stop. And they know that. They know that. They know the best spot is 184 points. Which is insane for this, right? Even if you did one contract, one micro, you're risking almost $400 with one micro. That's crazy, right, Chad? Isn't that crazy? Think about that. So what I would do here, if you didn't give me here, I would say, okay, if the question I would ask myself is where my stop loss is going. So if I'm thinking about entering and breaking the time, is actually my stop loss needs to go here. Am I okay with that? I'm gonna measure it out. Say, okay, it's 185 points. I'm not okay with that. So I'm not gonna do it. That's how I make my decision. Right? I'll make that decision. I'm not gonna get FOMO. I'm gonna wait for a better setup. And the moment I see, go back in time. The moment I see, let's do this. Here we go again. Putting back above that minute after. Okay. The moment I see this, I'm gonna say, okay, if we break this high, it's gonna be a better stop loss for me. I'm not gonna lie. It's usually tricky. That's good.
I kind of I missed my entry there. I was really eyeballing that 74.30 there.
Yeah, dude.
Pop.
I'm telling you, they're setting these ranges for the range traders today. We hit that first range all the way down to 7,400, back tested 7,300 from below. Jesus Christ, 7,430 from below, rejected for another short, then conquered it, pumped way up to the last bastion of negative gamma at the time at 7,450, rejected to backtest 7,430 again from above. That has held now. And so I'm expecting them to set this range, a new 30-point range, a little bit higher. But anything can happen. We've seen a Trump tweet, yeet, just murder a 2% day before. Risk management.
Yeah, I'm eyeballing it. I probably won't touch anything unless we maybe get up to that 74. that 7450. I mean,
Yeah, I'm
That's-
looking
that's-
for them to range here a bit or pick out the floor. Like I said, premiums are still up, but currently this is a new range here.
right there. Little drop on that.
It's only about a 20-point range versus this morning's 30, but nonetheless.
You know what? You want to see me be ballsy? Want to see me be ballsy? If we get to the 74.35 right now, I'm hopping in a
Going for it?
and I'm gonna.
Are you gonna
test
put
that
your
up
stop
to
right below that last low?
I'm gonna. But
You're being
don't scare me like that. I was like, oh, what? Like
down, yeah, you had it in the right spot, down farther. If you want to manually manage your trades and futures, just have an oh shit.
Hey, we're popping. Hold on, I'm moving this baby up though. I'm
buddy, not yet.
Don't do it. No,
Wait.
trust my range. Just trust
your
my
range.
range.
I would rather lose trusting my rules than get stopped out early and watch it happen. On the 1 minute, if this were the NASDAQ, I would move it up, but ES moves a little differently than the NASDAQ. On the 1 minute, if this were the NASDAQ, I would move it up, but ES moves a little differently than the NASDAQ. It didn't take out that prior high. There is an argument it can reject and come back down, but right now it has formed that stair step. Where your stop is actually a little higher than where I'd have mine. I'd have mine at the bottom of that pointy long wick of the farther.
Oh, that
down.
guy right there.
Yep. And if you're manually managing it, you're going to flatten before it gets there anyway. But the reason you need a stop on futures is because how fucking fast slippage happens. If there's no orders between here and way down at 74.24, you're not going to get a fill until 74.24. Now that's a shitload of slippage on ES. Probably not going to happen on a day like today, but it can. So I always, every fucking time I put on a trade, use a stop on futures. It's an oh shit bar. Usually it's way farther than I actually would stop out, but it's there as a panic button because shit moves fast when a tweet comes out. You don't want to be stuck in a trade spamming the flatten button as hard and fast as you can while we're knifing fucking 300 points in seconds. So I always have a stop.
I'm gonna move her up a little bit for some profits though.
If they tag you out on your stop, that's fine. You can get back in, but you can't. You can't undo a 100-point loss on ES or MES or NQ or MNQ that you didn't stop out of because you didn't have an automatic stop. I will always use stops on futures. I've gotten my ass blown open like crazy on a 5-second move that came right back to baseline because I didn't have a stop and it liquidated the account. Use stops on futures always. Oh, even if it will make you lose $1,000 on that stop, leave it there. Anyway, even if it's just a panic button, the shit happens, can and will. Some people will disagree with me and say, oh, stop runs. Cool. You can re-enter if you get run down. You can re-enter if you get stop ran. That's fine. You can't re-enter if your account gets fucking liquidated because you didn't put a stop and we knife 100 points.
We're bouncing on that VWAP too. I'm liking this.
I'll show you bouncing.
You will be in your maid outfit, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So for those of you new to the show, I ran a flash sale similar to the one I flashed on screen, which I'll be doing again here in a second. If you're just coming in, I got a nice spicy ass discount for you about to pop up that is specifically only for Unusual Whales live stream watchers. But enough of you subscribed during the flash sale that I have to wear a maid outfit for a whole episode. So whether you see that as a reward or a punishment for signing up is kind of up to you. It's definitely a punishment for me, but we all know it's a reward for Tucker. He seemed pretty excited about it. Marlon didn't like that. He's got an uppy eyebrow. He didn't like that. Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais. Tenho amigos aí.
See, like this is me if I'm in. Oh, hey, we're getting a little move. gonna move this up just a teeny bit. I would like to see a
Eu
little
morei
profit
na
on this.
Brasília por ano.
We're getting the move. We're getting a little pop.
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
Okay, I'm gonna move her down a little bit. She wants to pop there. She's holding that VWAP.
No, I like
You know what?
I like it. I still would have kept my stop down below because there's a lot of
Yeah,
literally where your stop is now would be for me if I wasn't in my re-entry to get in. And so if you put your stop there, I think that's a bounce spot. Now that said, they can just knife it down. But the reason I would put my stop still down at 74.48 is this can form that W pattern I talk about, that bullish W to keep going. But if you want to be safe, you can still set it below that last low, like where it's at now, right next to your blue buy candle.
Yeah,
and then you can get back in. If they come farther down, you can get back in. It's your trade, your risk management.
I am pressing my range here, pressing my support here.
And you can always get back in or switch. You're gonna be bouncing. I'm probably not gonna be bouncing. Maybe I'll do a little dance here and there. If I hit a nice trade, I'm gonna have to do like at least the cleavage push or something. I don't know. There's got to be some kind of weird ass celebration for it. If I'm doing it, I might as well go all out. Maybe I'll see my girlfriend to do my makeup, make me pretty.
You said
there are gonna be slurs in chat. I can smell it now. Don't use slurs though. You will get banned. You can make fun of me, but you can't say some weird shit because I will happily ban you. I think we might get into the T-Flow 7430, but we'll see.
Yeah, that update, not really anything major. I mean, look at that little update.
A little bit off of 7430, but not enough for you to be super excited. If they wick you out, I think you will have more opportunities to long. So if you want, you can be safe and move your stop to 74.55, which is below that last local low, right? Yeah, right next to your entry arrow, basically. And you'll take like a little baby hit below there. But if again, the way the gamma's set up below 74.30 on SPX, I could see a stop run wicking you out and going, but I think you're safe here. I like this. I still like this trade. Maybe they'll give you a nice little cup and handle to the upside on the 1 minute here. You do not want this current 1 minute to take out that prior low because then the back test is going to be about 5 more points. Right now, I like
this.
We're also finally getting a little bit of call buying hitting the tape as well, just a little.
Like if I'm in an option trade right now, I'm you're chopping. That's not what you want to see. Like I just gotta it's not gonna hurt me. Not gonna hurt me to sit and watch and try to chop.
Yeah. On the NASDAQ especially, my stop is still way down there. But
I think I am gonna kind of move it down here a little bit. Just I don't want to get wicked like that on Wednesday before that big pop there.
Funny. I will say,
like it was.
I did tell you to move the stop, but it'd be really funny if it rang. That would be really funny. His face says it wouldn't be very funny.
Yeah. I don't like this price action, man.
Yeah, we're slowing down a bit. They're still setting that same range above, though. They can back test below your stop currently and still say bullish, but I would rather, those of you who are new and haven't watched me doing my NQ scalps yet, I take really quick stop outs and wide profit ranges. And so I'll add into my move and then trim as we get closer to target. But I'll usually only take 5 to 10 points of stop out, depending on how fast NQ is moving. I don't like sitting through drawdown. My brain doesn't work that way. If I lose $200 over the course of 5 stop outs, it affects my psychology less than sitting through a trade through $200 of loss. I don't know why. It logically makes no sense, but I'm an idiot. So.
Yeah, it's price action.
Hedge flow from Brazil. Thanks for coming, homie. Maybe as you get more accustomed to our personalities and shit, we'll talk shit about Tucker and Anthony in Portuguese because they won't have any idea what the hell's going on.
All right, I'm gonna try they're going.
Yeah, it's still in that same W pattern. We'll see. It's got a lot of back testing it can do. I think we've got decent support below. Yeah, give us some brief. Plus, I mean, you're on a prop account anyway. The risk is much less than your personal account. You're vibing. It's gonna be really funny if they take your stop out and then bounce again though, because I still see the W currently. This right here should be a bounce spot as well. It's the top of the dip range earlier, but they can come pretty much all the way down to Anthony's stop and stay bullish. But you know, keep an eye on it, man.
They're gonna take me, and I'm the liquidity. I am their liquidity.
Marlon, I have a good link for you on that question. And I'm going to send you an article that Snorlax wrote called Indicators of Unusual Options Activity. This article outlines things that quote unquote are unusual in the flow and kind of how to regard them. That is the best place to start. I'll drop this in everyone else's chats here as well.
Shit, they're gonna try to wick me. They're gonna try to wick me. They fucking.
All right. Now, well, if they go below that candle, they were going to get your ass anyway. So keep an eye on this candle. See if they bounce out of it without setting a new low here. Low here, basically. I would almost long here, but stop below it. Stop right below the current candle. Right back on 74.30. Stop right below.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
When you will buy the water, like in the
About
Walmart or
the top of that range.
Probably Harris Teeter.
Did they stop you?
I buy
Three planes on it. Plenty of opportunity coming. Now I will say,
Well, I don't know where do they have the quail eggs. Dynasty?
right now the gamma positioning on S.
Yeah, so it's just honestly only degrees off.
I'm going Food Line next to Dynasty then, yeah.
They can chop right here. Still hold.
A bag of cutlet.
I like.
For cut the crab, we need cutlet.
Keep an eye on it though.
Chicken legs? Okay.
Really tight. 4 points.
Cutlet.
Profit target. We'll see what they do here. You
Like the
want to
thighs?
Really take out that wick.
I mean the drum. The drum, yeah. Okay.
Inside the wide range of the.
Hey.
Keep an eye on
You
it.
can buy for
This is my spot here. Yep.
That's
30 spot. Educating risk management. I like the terminology they use. They say you're paying the market for information when you're losing. If you're following your rules and you lose, you still won because you're following your rules, and now you have information from the market to take your next trade. I like that mentality. And so if this one ticks you out as well, take a 10, 15-minute break from trading, let them set up the range, show where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and then you can get back in when you test again. I don't like that opened below the close of the last 1 minute, but we're vibing here. They can chop here for a bit and still W up. I like your stop. I like your target. Good trade, good risk management. It is just slowed way down. What's our volume? Volume's drying up a little bit too, huh? NQ's making the same pattern here. But I told myself I'm not trading today, other than potential flow.
No.
I'm being a good egg.
And I haven't
Had a
even
decent
that many
week.
dings for flow.
I got mad all week because my Tradevit account got fucked up for a bit. I couldn't log in, pissed me off. I'm not gonna risk it. I'm gonna keep my decent week and move into next week for my scalping. But here we can watch Anthony win or lose again. It is slowed way down here. This range is getting really tight. Look at this. Look at this little flag here. You really don't want it to take out that 1 minute. It did. All right, let's see. They might tag you out on this one. They might tag you out on this one. Let's
No.
Yep. They,
All right.
yep.
Yep.
Let's see how they react to your EMAs. But actually, let's take a scalping break for a bit. Reevaluate the structure in 10 minutes or so. We never looked at Joe's end phase.
Was that a specific contract?
I sent a specific contract, yeah. He asked if there was any action.
I got it.
I found one with action. I'm gonna flip to your screen real quick. I gotta open a window. I'm getting hot as fuck.
So hot, man. Yeah, we should have a little then.
Hey, they took out 74.30 on SPX. We've got our net put premiums still rising. If you get real quick, and then we'll get to end phase. If you guys remember, I was talking about those premiums not reacting to the bounce at all. So we were looking for rejections. I liked Anthony's long because they were still setting this new range to the upside. 7,500 has been gradually building. The argument was there for it. Right about now would be another potential entry off that 74.25 long, but it's safer to take a break now. Buyers have lost control in the short term. Net put premiums are still spiking up. I would be hands off and waiting a little bit. If they're going to set a new range here, I want to see it and then I can get in on it. But currently, after that rejection, 0 for 2 in the last 2 trades, that's when I take a quick break. I pump the brakes, reevaluate structure, and get back in once the setup comes back. But right now, no setup for me. All right, let's look at end phase. I'm going to open that window because I'm fucking dying.
Yeah, we should probably look at those end phases when Joe sent them. They came in at 465 there. Yeah, they're up at 614 right now. See how they look when they come in. See. Oops. Go back to the original there. So yeah, that's kind of the first chunk of slow there. I mean, yeah, everything's coming in at the ask there. Little decrease there on that IV, but again, it's not 100% of signs there. Again, real time, I would have been like, I don't like seeing that price go up and that IV dropping, but again, good example here of where that didn't really matter because it's absolutely running there. And a little longer term there too, so anything long term, I'm not a fan of big long term trading, but just kind of looking at that too on the day here. When these came in end phase, this obviously was a big reason why that net call premium spiked there, 8% of the total volume there and all that on there at the time. But I mean, your net call premiums are running, you're getting good net volume there. I lean buy to open there long term. And anything else on end phase here? Yeah, I mean, it's just all calls kind of hitting the highest volume there. So I mean, yeah, good little piece of flow there. Obviously already has moved up a bit. Yeah, kind of rewind that there, and see that in real time would be a little more fun there. Let's do. I wish.
When he asked for end phase, those had just hit the tape. The one you were just that had just hit the tape when he asked for end phase. And now I feel like a dick because it ran as you saw.
Yeah. I mean, real time though, I would have kind of saw that IV drop as the price was going.
Yeah, fair enough.
My only little concern. So, but the long term stuff.
And then there's me, it's half degen with flow, and I don't even fucking look at IV. This one, CQT is from our man Full Metal Mex, one of our long-term viewers. Welcome back, homie. Glad to see you back.
Yeah, I see what you mean about kind of not the best context. I almost would kind of agree with you here saying potentially sold to open there. You get the IV drops here, and they are filling more at the bid there. How far are these out of the money? 12% out of the money, 34 days. Yeah, and I'm just kind of looking at the premiums here. I mean, you're not really getting any ask side calls, ask side puts, just kind of bid side stuff. And I'm gonna guess this is probably the reason for that big drop in put premiums there. Yes, it is. Look at that, 83% of that total volume in premium there. I mean, that's 484K. That's a big chunk there right now. So that alone is that reason for that drop on the net put premiums there. Anything else on this name? I mean, you did have some call premium yesterday. Let's just go back to it and take a peek at what that was.
Real quick, when he takes a peek at that, if you came in late and missed it, on most episodes of this show, viewers get special perks and discounts for the platform that nobody else gets. Nobody on Twitter is going to get this shit. Nobody in the general newsletter is going to get this unless they're tuning into the show like you folks on Substack are right now. 25% off the first 3 months of any subscription, be it Flow platform, be it API, 20% off your first 3 months. That discount's not going to get seen anywhere else. Even when we run site-wide sales, it's never going to be 25%. That's show exclusive for you guys only. Off your first 3 months on the monthly plans, API, Flow, whatever the hell you want to get. It's 25% off those first 3 months on monthly and the entire year on annual. Again, not going to show this code to anyone else. Just you guys. This code will also expire today, so it won't be floating out there for you to use next week. Yeah, that's my super excited pump of the show specific sales. So Stream 25 right there on the screen. That's the discount code for 25% off. Jump on that shit because we do not offer it to anyone except you viewers. Stream 25.
So use it today if you'd like to use it because it will not be there. Clear.
Hold on, who was it that asked for the API?
Karsten, I think that was
Rockfall. Yes. Karsten Rockfall. Stream 25 if you want that 25% off your API, homie. Jump on that shit. And then also like show us what you're building because I like seeing what people are building with that API. People are making some cool shit. And if you do that, Karsten, in the Unusual Whales Discord, there's a channel dedicated to the API warriors. A lot of cool stuff. All right, let's finish this EQT the hell up, and then I'll probably throw the code on smaller and just leave it on screen for a bit for the late viewers.
API stuff, man. That's just. I mean, I
it's over my head.
Yeah, no, that's the smarter people can do that one. Yeah, that EQ QTs here.